The Anambas Islands lie between the Malay Peninsula and Borneo, 180 nautical miles from Singapore. They are little known to the outside world. This was my second voyage with NUS Seafarers after the amazing journey to Krakatoa in 2018. See my short video about that adventure. After COVID, this expedition was difficult to arrange and some of the plans did not go well. In total, we traveled almost 1,000 kilometers, all by sea, and we reckon we visited 20 islands and traveled on 19 vessels, but mostly on our ship for friends. This is a map of our entire voyage from the island of Bintan to the Anambas and back. I recorded all of these on a GPS device, so they are completely accurate recordings of where we went. Our journey began in Singapore, traveling to Batam in hopes of catching a ferry to Anambas, where our ship awaited us. It's even more uncomfortable than it looks. It was hot. It was noisy. Everything was made of steel. We then had to charter a small boat to take us from Matak, where that ferry arrived, to Tarempa, where our ship finally awaited us. The coral reefs of Anambas were not healthy and vibrant as I had hoped. In fact, they were as wretchedly destroyed as I've seen everywhere else in Indonesia. I kayaked alone to Pulau Talabang, a very tiny island which, like many we visited, was uninhabited. Next morning, one NUS student comes with us to visit the Klong. These are fascinating fishing platforms. They are built entirely of wood and reused materials. They're towed by the usual small fishing boats, and the men stay out for 2 months or more. The cabin and the kitchen were, as you see. I noticed a homemade spoon rack made from a hose with notches cut in it. These local fishermen were absolutely delighted to have us foreigners come on board, and they were very generous, offering us some of their salted fish and squid and showing us what they were making, which smelled horrible. Floating fishing platforms fish mainly at night with bright lights, and when sailing in the seas in this part of the world, you can see these huge lights all around you at night. The pulleys used to raise the whole net framework are made of wood. It's all made by hand. Quite extraordinary. This is an actual windlass to pull up the anchor. Here I am with these very friendly fishermen. We had brought some gifts, and in turn we were offered coffee, cigarettes, and I asked about many of their fishing equipment, which I found fascinating. All of it, or most of it, was handmade. I asked how they tied their line onto these hooks without eyes and one of the men demonstrated wrapping the line around his toe. And alas, we had to say goodbye to our new friends. This was, for me, perhaps the most interesting part of the voyage. As always, Dadang served up amazing meals from his tiny gallon, and the fish were pretty salty for me. Here we are fleeing a storm that was chasing us near a tiny island called Tamiang. The little island looked absolutely enchanting, and I couldn't wait to go ashore and explore. Like all the islands we visited, there's evidence of human activity everywhere. Fires, rubbish, and former coconut plantations and so on. But still, incomparably beautiful wildlife. A major part of any voyage on Four Friends are the incomparably amazing stories of Captain Blake. On a very slow vessel like Four Friends, long sea voyages are interminable and can be rather uneventful. We're approaching Wyhe Eco Resort. Wyhe is a privately owned island. Wealthy guests arrive only by seaplane. After visiting several of these so-called eco resorts, I decided that they ought really to be called ego resorts, because there's nothing eco about them at all. One inland expedition that we all made together was to climb up this mountainside, looking for trails which we couldn't find for quite a long time. Eventually we reached this famous lookout point, which was indeed very beautiful. Scrambling down the mountain, we came across a so-called Wallace Library in the bar. It was in fact just a pile of books. The next morning, Batam made the best banana cake I have ever tasted. A couple of us went ashore on this so-called watchtower pinnacle, which has a prehistoric forest of strange cycads, some of them fruiting. I climbed about halfway up the pinnacle into this very strange forest until suddenly we saw resort staff sweeping their footprints away from the beach where the high-value individual guests were about to arrive. We were then told to leave by a security boat and escorted a long way back, 40 minutes all the way around the island so as not to pass by the opening to the lagoon and being visible for 40 seconds by the high-value individual guests. We saw their boat coming as we were escorted away, so one could truly say that we were chased out by princes. The shocking incident of us being visible caused the resort staff to ask us once again, "How long do you plan to stay?" This is our entire route on Wyhe. We then sailed south, not knowing if we would touch at another island again. But as we passed this one, Rippon, I couldn't resist. I begged to be allowed to go on shore, and I'm so glad that I was able to do so. Rippon was an absolutely magical island full of bizarre things. The rocks of Rippon differ from all those in the Anambas Islands that we had seen. Instead of being white, they were red or various other colors. The forests near the shore were dominated by these strange pandanus trees with their peculiar root system and buttresses holding them up. The leaves were serrated and sharp. The forest was absolutely impenetrable, and I could nowhere find a way inland. I found a wall and what looked like the ruins of a communications tower. The legs had clearly been cut, and the tower itself had crashed into the jungle, and it didn't look to be there very much. All too soon the sun was setting, and I had to leave this wonderful island with much regret. So farewell, fascinating Rippon. I'll probably never see you again. Setting a southwesterly course, we sailed for days through the open sea with no land in sight and often no other ships. It was an amazing experience to be so far from anything at all. As the sun set on our voyage for the last time, we prepared for the harrowing experience of passing through the busiest straits in the world. I was very excited by my first sight of the famous Horsburgh Lighthouse built on Pedra Branca. I've read much about it and I've written a little about it, so it was thrilling to actually see it with my own eyes, even if only through binoculars. We must make our way through massive tankers and container ships. We ourselves are very slow and very tiny. But we made it, and here we are coming into port in Nangsa Point in Batam. 4 friends had docked at last. But there was one last treat. We were invited to dinner at Dadang's restaurant for a final farewell. This was a wonderful end to an amazing voyage. Our voyage had come to an end. After 11 days, there would be no more showering and washing clothes in seawater, and I, for one, was very relieved. Thanks for watching.